Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our fourth webinar of our summer series, I.T.E.A.C.H, where we are talking about education and assessment and current happenings in today's education market. My name is Allison Boyven, and I am on the marketing team here at Riverside Insights, and I am joined today by another former educator and district administrator, Anna Hausman. She is the Group Product Marketing Director at Riverside Insights. And together, we will be your hosts for today's webinar. If you missed our third webinar in the series, we talked with two district administrators from the Evansville-Vanderburgh School Corporation in Indiana about data used to identify foundational skill gaps in reading, interventions in place to support students, particularly in Tier 2 and Tier 3, looking at tracking interventions, setting reading goals, and best practices with how the district is moving student reading ability forward. Today, we are really excited to welcome the principal from St. Michael's Catholic School in Cuero, Texas. She's here to share with us some structures and strategies for analyzing assessment data, how data supports program and instructional decisions, and building a positive data culture among staff. Before we get started, though, and formally introduce our speaker, we do have a few announcements to share. Throughout the summer, we are providing webinars on various educational topics, including COVID recovery efforts in math, how to understand scores on norm-referenced assessments, measuring student longitudinal growth, and how assessment data informs instruction. Be sure to join us each week as educators share their thoughts and perspectives on the given topic, and look for our weekly webinar invites. During today's session, you may have some questions that you would like answered during the discussion, and we absolutely welcome those questions. So please type those into the Q&A panel displayed on the right side of your screen. It's going to look something like this image shown here on the left, and we will be sure to share your questions as the topic arises during the discussion. Handouts for today's session are located under the handouts triangle in the right side panel. So be sure to download those during today's webinar. Also, today's session is being recorded, and you will receive the recording, a copy of the slides, the handouts, and a certificate of attendance in the next day or two. So be on the lookout for that email in your inbox. Also, recordings of our previous webinars can be found on our website at info.riversideinsights.com/K12PD. Opening this page provides you with the header shown here, and all of our previous I.T.E.A.C.H webinars are included on this page. And now on to today's presentation and discussion. So today we are very excited to welcome Sandra Stelpflug, the principal of St. Michael's Catholic School in the Diocese of Victoria, and I will let her introduce herself to our audience before we continue.
Hello, everyone. I'm a veteran public school teacher. I taught 32 years in public school and retired, and God was not through with me yet. So I became a vice principal at one of our largest schools within the diocese, and I worked there for about 7 years. And I thought I was going to retire again, but God was not through with me yet. So when I moved to Cuero, which was going to be my retirement village, I was approached to take the principalship at our little school here in St. Michael's. And I always put Cuero after St. Michael's because within our diocese, we have two St. Michael's schools. We have St. Michael's Weimar and we have St. Michael's Cuero. And the little footnote, the teacher that, the principal, former principal, went from St. Michael's Cuero to St. Michael's Weimar. So lucky her, she can just answer the phone at St. Michael's. So back to my public school, the last 11 years that I taught in public school, I was an educational diagnostician. And so I became an administrator over 2 districts, helping them with their special ed program because they didn't have a special ed director per se. These were small districts. I live in a rural place. My school is very small. St. Michael's has 1 teacher per grade level. We've had junior high in the past, but we have limited children that attend because they go to our public school, which is a great public school. and they offer athletics. So now we are just K3 through 5th grade.
Wonderful.
It's a dynamic career, Sandra, and I know that you've impacted so many teachers and students along the way. So we really appreciate it. We can't wait to learn from you this morning.
Great. It's great. We have a lot of curriculum and instruction directors, assessment and special education administrators, gifted and talented coordinators, principals and assistant principals, and teachers in our audience today. So a wide variety of voices listening in. So just to get us started, I know you shared a little bit about where you are from with Diocese of Victoria. But if you can share a little bit more about the diocese, and then we'll talk about St. Michael's in particular, that would be great.
Well, our diocese has 15 schools. A lot of the schools are pre-K3 through 8th grade. We have 2 schools that are pre-K3 through 5th grade, and St. Michael's is one of them. And then we have 3 high schools that are included in this 15. We offer, we cover 10 counties in South Texas. And our population, well, like the population of my school is under 100 students. We usually have anywhere from 80 to 100 students. The populations at our larger schools are like 500 students. But we are accredited by our state, so we follow all of the public school rules and regulations or policy. And then in addition, we have the policies that are implemented through our diocese that cover our religion aspects and also our policies for hiring teachers. Every 7 years, we are accredited. And I don't know if some of the superintendents were familiar with DECA, where they came to the school and they looked at all the records in public school. Well, that's basically what they do for parochial schools or private schools in Texas. We have to be affiliated with TEA in order to get this accreditation. So we use their format, and ours is the TCCBED, which is the Texas Commission of educational format that come to our schools. It's a lengthy process, and everyone has to work on this huge document that we have to prepare for them to see. It's currently, it used to be that we would make a binder and type it out and so forth, but they finally put it online. And so it takes us about 2 years in order to get this ready. And then they send a team, depending upon your school population size, they send a team to spend a week with you, and they interview the principal, the assistant principal, the teachers, the parents, some of the students, and then they decide whether you need to continue your accreditation or not. And so ours is coming up next year.
That's an extensive process. My goodness.
It is, but it's worth it because it keeps us on our toes, so to speak. It keeps us, it keeps our curriculum fresh, and we're not alone because we're surrounded by 14 other schools. We can reach out to them for additional help, and the teams are made up of our peers. So they have to have a training, and they come to your school to do the accreditation. And one person is the chairperson that is out of our diocese. So all throughout Texas, the different dioceses has to create a team that can come to the schools to do this. Right now, Our enrollment is pending. Usually the first week of school in this rural town, we'll have a lot of former students come back and want to enroll. So our first week of school is hectic. When we're creating budget for testing or our curriculum, so forth, we depend on our student population because that's where the bulk of our monies come from. We have a plethora of wealthy donors that help our school. It's not like public school where you have taxes already set up and so forth. We have to be very frugal. So we have to look at the data that our assessments have. We have to look at what type of curriculum that we are adopting, which is also on this state adoption list. We have to look at the benchmarks that our diocese created as well as the state benchmarks because we have to follow both within our accreditation process. So it's sometimes it's like I'm waiting to see how many kids we're going to have and so we can create a budget to run our school. And that's the most stressful thing about my job. Other than everything else is a piece of cake.
Wow. Yes, I noticed here. I'm just going to add here on the slide that you all have some real world classes, like personal finance and cooking, and I just thought that was interesting within the diocese that you all offer this.
We try to take a survey every year to see what our kids want. One year we offered crocheting, and you would think that it'd be an all-girl thing. Well, we had more gentlemen in our classrooms and they made these beautiful quilts. I don't know if you've been online to see the crocheting with your arms. When these boys wanted to do that, so they made these king-size blankets for their grandparents and for their beds and so forth. So cooking, carpentry, being in a rural area, we do a lot of 4-H and FFA, and so a lot of our students raise farm animals. And so when we have the blessing of the pets, you don't just have puppies and kittens. You have cows and donkeys and goats and pigs, and bringing them all in the trailers to be blessed by our priest, because that's our community. So that's one of the fun things about private school. You can think outside the box. You can bring your cow to school.
Wow. Sounds exciting. And yes, as we're looking at with St. Michael's, can you share a little bit about this school in particular? I noticed you all are 145 years old.
Yes, so we were here before the public school. All of the schools in the diocese were started by our sisters. We had a group of nuns and we had a group of sisters. And so a lot of them are retired, but they're great people to call for advice and help and so forth. So now most of our schools are run by lay people, the lay ministers. Our particular school, I'm hoping that the 30 that haven't enrolled yet will enroll, but right now we have 61. And we have one teacher per grade level. We have a paraprofessional in our pre-K3, pre-K4, and kindergarten classrooms. We offer music. We offer choir. Our music teacher also teaches private piano lessons after school, so that's a plus. We have an online Spanish program from kindergarten through 5th grade. We have a full-time PE teacher, and we also do track, tennis, and dance. And so those are just things that we added to help our population. Since we're a rural community, to go to a dance program is 30 minutes away. So it's, I'm bringing them here to the school to help out. I did tell you that the population of Cuero is very small. It's under 10,000. It's kind of like living in a Hallmark town. Everybody knows everybody. A lot of our kiddos go to the public school. And so there's, we actually have two towns that feed into our school. But most of the kids, after they leave 5th grade, they go to public schools because the public schools offer the sports that we're not able to do up to 5th grade. And so when our public schools have district games or district events that all of the older siblings go to, then we have to, you know, utilize a early out so that the parents that work here at my school can get to their children's games and so forth. So it's you know, we have to have a good relationship with our public schools. Our public schools also are the people that their diagnosticians would come, and if we have a child that we're referring for testing, they're the ones that come and do the testing. So that's another thing, we have to have a good relationship with the public schools. And so data that we provide is very important. It may not be the same programs that they use at the public school, but we need to make sure that they have a good picture of what we're seeing at our school in order to obtain a referral for a special ed testing or gifted and talented testing, two ends of the spectrum.
Sure. Well, thinking about all that with some of the data and looking at it with the private school and for the public schools purposes, we know that students take a lot of assessments throughout the year: classroom formative assessments, benchmarks, diagnostic, summative. A lot of data is provided within all of these assessments. From a high level perspective, can you share with us how you build a positive testing culture among your teachers and staff? How do you help those maybe who aren't so comfortable with looking at data and promote that perspective of you know, really building that culture with data as an important aspect in the life of the school?
Well, we are a data-driven society, so it's not going to go away. And you're right, a lot of teachers kind of back off from that. You know, why do I need to know this? But let me start by saying that we do administer the Iowa assessments. I was always a proponent of doing it in the fall and the spring because I want to see if every student made progress. Our diocese, up until, well, this year will be the first year that we're going to just administer it in the spring. And so that's why I wanted to bring on the Iowa Flex, because I think that we need to see a continuum of progress. Now we utilize other things, like we do a Renaissance Start testing for math and reading. We have our benchmarks that our curriculum provides. And then we also use teacher-made tests, and then the tests that our curriculum has, and then annotated teacher notes. Those are so very important. And so when looking at my teachers, I want to make sure that they understand how to read the data. And so training is a big part. As a matter of fact, we have Iowa assessment center training that we're going to utilize this August before school starts, to get a fresh look at it and to see how to interpret it for your classroom, for our school, for an individual student, and then also how to talk to the parents about their child's progress. That's very important. And so, you know, utilizing all of the different reports and putting it together so that we can prepare a package for our parents is important. So setting up the training is important. And also teachers have to know different strategies. Let me turn this phone down. they have to know different strategies when they're looking at that data. They have to realize, okay, I've got a gap here. What do I do? Is it the way I'm teaching this? Do I need to perfect do a different type of lesson for this objective? They need to know how to read that. We do have PLCs, which is kind of weird when you only have one teacher per grade level. So what I've done is I've combined kindergarten and first, second and third, and fourth and fifth. And so they have the same planning time. So I'm able to sit with them and we look at the data. They ask questions, I ask questions. We try to find what is needed for this group of students. We utilize the different, well, once a child is in kindergarten, they're tested with Iowa, so we can see the longitudinal results every year. We look at that. We look at their specific classroom data. I believe it's called the class profile, the multi-measure, which is one of my favorites because it's so colorful. And you just glance at it and you say, oh, these are the areas that I have holes that I need to fix. So that's one of my favorites. And that's, I try to make sure that I have all of this data that we have online, not just the Iowa, but all of the other online programs that we use. I make sure that I print it out quarterly so that my teachers have it, so that they know how to plan, where they need to go in their planning.
Sure. And you mentioned that I think the diocese mandates the Iowa assessments, but just one time now?
Yes, there will be schools that do it twice a year. But this will be the first year I'm using Iowa Flex.
Okay, sure. And I was thinking, to start the year off, do you all administer, is that Iowa, or is that just in the spring?
Well, last year it was in the fall and the spring, because I was one of the schools that did. There's 3 of us that, want to do it. But most schools just do it in the fall. And I think in retrospect, a child's been gone all summer long, June, July, and most of August. And then they get back, and in the first week in September, they're taking this test. And so there's a lot of excuses, I feel like the spring we're going to get a better result of what this year has entailed, because we all know that children don't pick up books like we want them to and practice their skills. So getting a lot of calls. So yeah, it's this year we'll do it in the spring, but the Iowa Flex is going to help us get through the year.
As the benchmark?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And are you going to administer it multiple times through a year, and what grade levels?
We're going to do kindergarten through 5th grade. We're going to do it online, and I think if we have students that are new to our school, that will be the benchmark that they take first. It's something that we can do.
I'm really curious to learn a little bit more kind of about your teacher training. I think, you all, like every school, administers a number of different assessments. And one of the things that we talk to districts a lot about is that teachers don't understand why they're administering assessment 1 or assessment 2 and like the difference in the types of assessments. How do you infuse some of that into your training to ensure that your teachers really are bought into each assessment they're administering and understand the purpose behind it?
Well, you can hold it over their heads, which, this is your data, you need to look at it and report back or something like that. But within our diocese, we compare schools to schools. And so I think once I provide that data to the teachers, they realize, oh my goodness, this is where St. Michael's is, and this is where we need to be. So, you know, it's kind of like, it's not competitive because you're not competing, you know, kindergarten through to first grade. You just want to see improvement. And, you know, it can be a measly few points, but you want to see improvement. And so with the data that you get on your assessments, you really need to look at the curriculum you're using and how you're implementing it. And that's where I focus. The data is the data. You know, it's, you know, when you take the Iowa assessment in the spring or the fall, whenever, it's a 1 week assessment. You know, you take the reading part one, and that's, you know, that's 45 minutes that child's taking that test. It's a 1 day thing. But how are they performing in the classroom? You know, what type of learning strategies help him or her learn the best? That's what data should do. It should drive your teachers to realize, okay, this is what I need to do to help my classroom. These are the gaps that they have. I can use the data to group these kids. These kids are lacking this skill. I can group them. That's what you should do with the data. If they're missing something across the board, then that teacher needs to look and find another lesson to teach that objective.
And you're going to have somebody come in or through Zoom to do the training?
Yes. And it's also, with Iowa, it's also presented in, like, you can go online. If you've had the training, you can always go online and revisit it.
Sure.
So that's wonderful. The printouts that Iowa, that Riverside gives you, it tells you what each assessment data piece, like, you know, there's several. There's the class analysis, student independent profile, the class profile. You can print out those data sheets. It gives you questions to ask yourself, and it guides you where, you know, how to make that printout and what to do about it. You know, what to do if your scores are low. That's all on the website. So it's helpful because once you've had the training, you always have to go back and now, how do we do that? What, you know, how do I dissect this data? It's all there.
Sure. We wanted to look too, thinking about the looking at the data. Can you share with us some of the structures and any strategies in the data meetings that are in place for you all and teachers to look at their assessment data? A routine maybe, or a set time frame of when you look at reports and scores, what a typical data meeting might look like.
Okay, well, they, like I told you, I want to make sure that they have the data in their hands ahead of time. And I want them to highlight, and I want them to look at it, and I want them to look at their lesson plan book and just make notes and look at their students and see the areas where we need to improve. And then we have planned meetings. I try to plan, you know, I know when report cards are due and so forth. So we have planned meetings throughout the year. And so they know that this meeting is coming. And I usually go to the classroom, and this year we're going to have, you know, 2 teachers in each meeting, and we're going to look at the data, and I'm going to let them tell me the first meeting what they feel their data has shown. And then they may say, well, this has happened in the past. I need more training on implementing my lessons. And so it's my job to help them find that through our Region 3 or through webinars, or there's several professional development programs out there that we can utilize. And then the next time we meet, we're going to look at individual scores. We're going to look at how we can fill in the gaps. I'm going to be asking them to provide data as to what they're doing in their classroom to remediate the areas that need. And then on the other hand, it's not just remediation. We have a lot of gifted students, so we also need to look at those as well. What are we doing to help those students, move further? I have one student in particular that is fantastic in math, and so we have bumped him up to the next grade. So he goes from his grade level to the next grade because he's just a whiz at it. And so, why keep him in the grade level that he's at when he'll just be bored and so forth. So we really are challenging him. I don't know what I'm going to do yet when he's in 5th grade. He's in 4th grade this year, so he'll be in the 5th grade class for math. So next year when he's in 5th grade, I just don't know what we're going to do. I guess I'll have to send him to our public school for math or something, or get an online program, or just have a teacher pool to teach him math. But we're a small school, we can do that. But when you have all spectrums in your classroom, you have to look at that. You have to teach all of the students and help them all be successful. So it's not just a one-time meeting. It's a progression of meetings. And those teachers that have the wall up, I try to pair them with a group that don't, and let them learn from their peers that, okay, this is what I'm doing. Maybe maybe this is a suggestion for you, or and it usually goes over well. Of course, I'm in a Christian environment as well, so.
Are there particular scores that they are highlighting?
The particular scores that they highlight? Well, right now they're looking at scores that are not average. So that would be your high scores and your low scores. And so they're planning for if a student needs to be referred for special testing, and they're looking at if we need to put that student in a higher grade level for this particular subject.
How I love the phrase like progression of meanings, because you're really talking about building a data culture, where teachers and leaders are actually utilizing the information on a daily basis. And you mentioned this as well. You all have the unique benefit of being small, so that you really can dig in and know each individual student. How would you recommend, and maybe thinking back to your time in the public school district, if a larger school or a larger district was trying to kind of implement some of these systems, where would you recommend they start? Like, is there one piece in particular that you feel like has been a game changer for your school in really ensuring that you can be data centric in the work that you're doing? Where would you recommend that they kind of take a look first?
Well, in my public school experience, we had PLCs of 2 grade levels, which would probably be eight teachers, and then the PLC coach and so forth. And we would meet once a week. But basically, that's what I patterned my school after, is what I knew. And we would meet once a week, and we would look at the data. You would compare your particular classroom in grade level to the other 3 grade levels, and then share ideas as to what's working in your classroom. So it's, although we had a PLC leader, it was also peer remediation. We're helping each other. We're helping each other get the results that we want. And also, when you have more than one grade level teacher, 4 teachers, you can share students. Maybe you don't have enough to really have a group. They say grouping is better with at least 3 students. So if you don't have enough, you can share students, because we all know that the scheduling is the same throughout the school for each grade level. So it's just another way of helping each other help the student succeed, because all of our data that should be the purpose of it. We're helping each child be successful.
That's a great suggestion to share, students. We've done a couple webinars in the past on just like diving into different clustering models, different grouping models, really understanding specifically kind of with, as you talk about the other ends of the bell curve, right? Like how to really support and ensure those students are getting the specific needs that they, or that we're meeting those specific needs. So I love your ideas about like even how to think outside of your typical like classroom structure and really be creative about getting the students the support.
You have, because even though the classrooms need to be homogenized, where you know you don't have all of the special needs students in one classroom, they do need to be homogenized because the students are learning from each other as well. But they also have to have, you know, each group, depending upon if they're the bluebirds or the fruit flies, I don't know, you know, grouping names, you know, what we use, but anyway, in my day, and you know, and anyway, you have to bring all of the groups up. You have to bring them to their maximum potential. So when you have all of those gifted and talented students in one group, they still need to go to the next level of what's next. They need to be challenged, is what I'm trying to say. You know, a lot of times we think that our low groups just need remediation, and that's usually not the case. We need to back off and think, how do these students best learn? They're not getting it. The flashcard routine is not getting it, or the repetition is not getting it. So you need to step back and you need to think, okay, how can they best learn so that I can accelerate their learning and get the concepts that they need to know. And so it's very important that teachers have strategies. That's something that a lot of colleges do not teach these days. And your special ed teachers are really good at that, because you can't just use one strategy for the whole classroom. You have to utilize different strategies to help these kids.
And that sounds like you're building that culture where it's become all of our students. It's not your class of students, my class of students. These are collectively.
Yes.
Students.
We're a faculty team, and especially in a private school situation, you utilize that, you know, everybody has to pull their weight in a small school or in a large private school. We are a team. We work together to present a product, which is our student ambassadors. And so we do have to work together. My personality may not jive with this student, so I've got to find ways or somebody that can help me with this child, because you know I'm the only first grade teacher, so I need to make sure that this kid has every opportunity that anyone else in my classroom has. So within that team spirit, that's what you need to look at. Everyone has to be open to that.
Mm-hmm. Do you all look at longitudinal data as well? And any cohort trends? Or?
Yes, we do. And most importantly, we utilize that when we are making referrals for a gifted and talented student, or for a student that may be having some learning issues. We want to see if it's just this year that they're not doing well, or if it's been, you know, over a period of years.
And you're able to triangulate the data, because it sounded like you all have benchmarks, as with Iowa Flex maybe, but other benchmarks in the class, and then report grades and things like that.
So when we make a referral to our public schools, they send us over their paperwork, and they're looking at RTI, and they're looking at which is, you know, response to intervention. We're doing it every day. I mean, and so sometimes their information is kind of vague to our teachers, because we don't have all of these ancillary ancillary programs that pull out programs. So, we don't have it. So when we fill out paperwork for the schools, we include our data as well. We include our benchmarks, our self-made tests, our, of course, our Iowa scores as well. We utilize Renaissance. We include that data, but a lot of it is our teachers' annotated notes that help the diagnostician or the LSSP that's doing the evaluation to really know that child. We provide as much background as we can. So our paperwork really doesn't fit right inside the box that the public school is used to. So, but we have a lot of diags that are very generous, and they will come and talk to us if they don't understand the data that we're giving them. One good thing about the Iowa is it has that star indicator. So when our kids in 5th grade go to public school, we provide that for them so that the public school knows, okay, this child's going to need remediation and star, or they're good to go. So I'm very glad that that's been implemented because it helps us a lot.
Can you share with us too, in thinking about the data to support the instructional purposes in the classroom, share with us how that data is influencing teaching practices and the curriculum, for example, that path. Does assessment data affect the curriculum selection, for example?
Yes, it does. Our curriculum is from the state mandated list. We have to select. Our diocese has a group of teachers and principals that meet, and we select 10 to 12 math books or 10 to 12 reading programs, and we feel like those would be utilized best at our schools. And then the schools get to pick, out of the 10, what they, the one that they have selected. So not all of us use the same math program or the same reading program. So because we have different populations, like one school that's near the coast has a lot of Vietnamese students, and that's the 80% of their population. Whereas here in Cuero, we have a lot of rural farmers, and like when it's time to bale hay, a lot of my students are absent because they help their families with that. So, it's just different populations that we have to look at. So when we get the data, especially when we're brand new into a curriculum program, we want to see where our holes are. I don't know how else you can do it. You want to hope and pray that the curriculum that you selected covers all of the T.E.A.C.H and the DIASN objectives, but you just have to have the data to back that up. You have to make sure that it is across the board. The vertical alignment is there. I don't think I answered your question because you're.
Oh, it's great. And then I wanted to ask about the reports, the assessment data reports that you all look at. I think you shared a little bit, and there's the multi-measure.
Yes, these three that are on your slide are the ones that our teachers like, and they love the multi-measure student report because you can just glance at it and say, oh my goodness. Of course, ours are not that large because I think the most students we have are 14 in a class, so it's the data is very visible. But they have been trained on how to read these, and they look forward to getting them. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the Iowa Flex is going to be presented. I've seen it online, but I think the training is going to be beneficial for our students. Our teachers, because they are going to be able to look at their one-time spring award. We'll be looking at our fall and spring from the previous year and then comparing it to our Iowa Flex as well to see, because we have not, I think the last time we got the math curriculum was 2 years ago, and it was 3 years ago for the reading curriculum. So we've had our curriculum for quite some time, but looking at the scores will help them find if we're doing a good job.
And do you see, I know we've talked a little bit about kind of how teachers are grouping or accelerating students based on data. Are you seeing them even start to infuse data in which students they're asking different questions to throughout the instruction, or like in more of, or I guess, could you talk a little bit about how else you're seeing data integrated into just like the daily classroom instruction? Or you spoke a little bit about how students learn best. And so thinking about even if teachers are tweaking different activities or exercises based on some of this information that y'all are gleaning.
Yes, we've also adopted a new teacher evaluation program. It's called a trust-based observation. And so it puts more emphasis on what the teacher's doing in the classroom. So they goal set depending upon what happened last year. And again, you have to realize that every group of students you get are different. You know, you may have some kids that really like the teaching strategies that the teacher utilizes, and they're going to do great. And then you may have some years that I did the same thing I did last year. What happened? You know, why are my scores so low? So having that observation data, the teacher observation data, helps the teacher gear up for the year. They set goals, maybe asking questions, higher level thinking questions was something that they wanted to work on. And so this coming year, they're going to put that on their observation. So that data is going to help them along with the data that we get from the students, the results that they have. So that's one way that we utilize what they're doing. I'm also, last year we implemented peer observations. So I covered, you know, I don't have an assistant principal, but I covered the class so that this teacher could go and observe that teacher and give that teacher feedback. And then I looked at, and that teacher came in and observed this teacher so that they could give each other feedback. And that has been great because it's not top down. It's you know, the team is helping the team, and that's how I've been able to build relationships. I had a group of new teachers that looked at all this data with big eyes, like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? I don't know how to do it. And so my older group of teachers, well, I say older, they've been here longer. They were able to help the newbies dissect it and where they needed to go, and that's how you establish your team. You know, it's imperative, especially at a small school such as ours. So looking at the analysis, you can see where the gaps are. You know, if it's a teaching strategy, it's going to show. If it's not bringing the kids up to where they want to go, it's going to show. And so once you're adversed at looking at the data, it makes life at a school so much easier.
It sure does. So since y'all are moving away from using Iowa at the beginning of the year, how are you planning on kind of getting some of that diagnostic information for students?
Well, I want them to use their benchmark assessments that their curriculum provides. And then our teachers pretty much know if they need to make their own assessment. And so that data is also going to be provided. We do kind of like a portfolio program for our students, so it follows them. And then at the end of the year, the important data is put on a streamline. We use a Google document, but that way the next year that teacher has it. Or if they go off to another school, we can include that. But it gives the assessment data, it gives the benchmarks that we've utilized, and it just kind of gives an overall diagnostic of that student, so that, you know, some teachers prefer not to look at it before school starts. They want to make their own assessment, which is okay. And so they will pull it out after the first progress report and, you know, see if their data coincides with what's happened in the previous years. Some teachers like to have it in June so that they can look at it all summer long, and those are the ones that I help, you know, our younger teachers with data. So it just depends on the teacher. You know, it's what our kids need.
So some of that verticalization of a prior year's teacher maybe meeting with the next year's teacher, that student.
That always happens, yes. At the end of the year, throughout our diocese, our teachers meet. They have a work day, and they pull all of the students' personal folders, and they work on them together. They put the data where it needs to be, and it gives them an opportunity to talk about the students. Now, when you only have, you know, less than 100 students, it's easy to do. Well, even if you had 400 students, but if you're in a public school, that's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be done by the office staff or something like that. But it's so important for us to show progress from year to year. I think it helps teachers see, okay, last year they were in this group, I'm going to try to bump them up to this group. It helps them to make plans as far as where, you know, where each student needs to be.
Right, and those initial groupings at the beginning of the year, as far as how to put those students organized. Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that data, then you're just, okay, I'm going to put this person into this group, okay, but I'm going to put them in, and so there's no continuity for that child.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I being moved around so much?
Sure. And then we wanted to ask about any key insights that you've discovered from all these data analysis sessions with Iowa assessments and the Iowa and assessment data in general. Thinking about any practical strategies or insights or recommendations that you can share with administrators and teachers, some of these best practices to put in place, or how to begin the year on a great foot, on a great note.
Well, we've already had at the end of the year, we had some teachers that are no longer with us, and so we have new teachers coming on. And this summer, they've already met with their new co-teacher, and so they've already shared data. And so after the first in-service where we do talk about the data and how we utilize it at our school, then I'll have to meet with them, the new teachers, more so independently than I would, you know, our teachers that have been here in the past. Our PLCs will start probably the second week of school. The first week is crazy. And I think that once they get in the groove of meeting, it'll fall into place, because I always try to make sure that, okay, we're going to just look at this. We're just going to look at the objectives that were not met by your students. And so when you're just looking at a specific piece, it makes it a lot easier. It's, you know, it's chunking the data, in other words. But going back to the beginning of your question, I think I work better when I know what I'm getting. And so I think the majority of teachers want to know that. And so having that data ahead of time so that they can, you know, take it home and look at it, or look at it with a peer, is going to be most beneficial. It's not just about making a grade book with their names and making lesson plans. When you're lesson planning, you really need to know what type of students you're working with. So getting data into our teachers' hands is very important. Helping them understand it is very important.
Definitely.
And helping our teachers be the best they can be is very important.
And data helps you do all of that, which is great.
It does. And you know, utilizing, like I said at my school, we're on a budget, so we can't just go and spend thousands of dollars on training. You know, I want to get a bang for my buck. So I utilize my older, well, I say older, but my teachers that know how to do it, that have been here. Okay, this is how the stuff does this, you know. I utilize that a lot because I don't want them to just hear it from me. I want them to hear it from their peers. This is how I look at the data and how I've used it in my classroom. And they learn from each other, and it's not a their effective filter is down, you know. And at a Catholic school, we can even, if they meet after 4, which a lot of times it happens, we can even offer adult beverages. So, you know, it's a win-win for everybody. Utilizing a glass of adult beverages is really, when you're looking at the data, it just kind of makes you relax and helps things slow down. I know you can't do that at a public school, but you know, one of these days, the public school people are going to want to retire, and so you still have purpose. You can come over to the private school sector and enjoy all of the blessings that we have.
You've shared a lot with us today. As far as the Q&A, we have some questions in the chat.
Well, and Allison, we might not have too much time for questions because we have another webinar coming up in 3 minutes, which is so exciting. So if you are not webinared out, feel free to join us for another webinar shortly, and you can register on the Riverside Insights homepage.
All right, well, we will be sure to look through the Q&A chat as well when we are finished here and respond as needed. So thank you again for joining us today, Sandra, and everyone on this webinar. We are out of time, but please join us for our next webinar next Tuesday, July 18th, as we look at scores for measuring longitudinal growth and the decisions impacted at the district, school, and classroom levels. And look for the webinar invite later this week for that one. And how are you all looking at assessment data within your districts and schools to help students learn to their fullest potential? Share with us your success stories, reports and scores that are supporting your local decisions, and any practices in place to identify students who are excelling or need more support. Be sure to tag us on social media and keep in touch. And from all of us at Riverside and everyone, we really appreciate you all joining us today, and we hope to see you again for another webinar. And until next time, we hope you have a great rest of your day and a great week. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.